Good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. It's a real privilege for me actually to deliver Argonne's State of the Laboratory Address for 2017. It's really a fantastic honor to be able to do that, and one that I'm sure we've got many good things to really celebrate, and so I'm really pleased to be able to share the good progress we're realizing with all of you today, and looking forward to walking through the talk. Before I do that, I really wanted to say thank you, because as the interim laboratory director, I've certainly been challenged from time to time to make sure that I'm focused on the right things and really representing you most effectively. And I really feel through the process of the last 7 months, and hopefully it'll continue for the duration, really feel a great deal of support and encouragement, and also certainly a willingness to lend in and help wherever it's been needed. And so thank you very much for that. I also would like to say a few words about the early scroll through the staff awards and recognition. I think we probably ought to start with a round of applause for the employees we've recognized in that way. So please. So thank you. Yeah, the world is an interesting place. Argonne is really vital to what we're about in terms of science and technology, and in terms of what we are about as Americans, and really delivering a very impactful science. And I think you'll see that very quickly in the talk this morning. I wanted to start with this quote. I won't read through it. I think this really says a great deal about where we're at and the direction we're headed. It really communicates a great deal of support for the laboratory from the Office of Science, a great deal of commitment by the leadership team here as well at the laboratory. This is feedback from the annual lab planning process. In June, as a team, we presented our strategic plan, if you will, to the Office of Science, and other sponsors in the Department of Energy, EERE and NE were also there. Great feedback here in terms of really a coherent, well thought out strategic plan, showing great integration as well across the laboratory, more so than we've ever done before. This was the result of really of a 4-month planning process here at the laboratory that many of the leaders across the laboratory engaged in very actively to really help us focus down. We moved from 12 initiatives down to 5 initiatives, really showing great focus, great desire on our part to really deliver impactful science and execute very strategically in doing that. So particularly noteworthy, thank you really for the great effort here, really significant. This really kind of sets a tone, if you will, for all of our activities with the Department of Energy. And so having their endorsement in terms of our thinking and where we're headed, the direction and the great things we're doing is really important. It opens up a great deal of space, a great deal of conversation for us to really work with them in a much more partnership mode and introduce new ideas into their thinking. And so it's really critical that we do well in this process. And so please, as you see your associate laboratory directors, your division directors, and other leaders of the laboratory, thank them for really engaging in the process and helping make this happen. I'm going to move now to talking about accomplishments. We've got much to be proud of in this space. Something we don't often do is really talk about Argonne by the numbers, and over 2,000 journal publications. I want to highlight just a few. It's really important to recognize this goes all the way from basic science to really working with industry and seeing our technologies commercialized, and also the economic impact we have on the community. All important metrics, over 2,000 journal publications, $4.5 million in terms of licensing revenue. It's going to be up quite a bit in FY17 thanks to our work in energy storage. I would also highlight 30 CRADAs, Cooperative Research and Development Agreements. That's really where we partner with industry to do some very exciting research that really helps address a problem. It's a way we deliver a significant impact as well. And then in terms of economic impact, think about $700 million is what we actually deliver to the state of Illinois and to the immediate community in terms of impact. So very, very significant set of metrics showing that we're doing great things. We're being really productive as well. Jumping right into a bit of a discussion about X-ray science and accomplishments in this space as well. The advanced photon source, which we're sitting, really continues to be a workhorse, delivering very significantly in terms of scientific results, working with users as well as our own staff to really do some cutting-edge science, if you will. And it's important to note there are over 6,000 unique experiments at the APS in FY16. Over 5,500 users came to the laboratory in one form or another to actually use the great tool that the advanced photon source is, and so very effective in that way. It's also important to recognize that we continue to think about the future and really know for really doing great science and technology and engineering in this space as well. We're the go-to laboratory, if you will, for superconducting undulators, and really seeing those not only being deployed here, but also at other laboratories in terms of their light sources. I wanted to comment as well on the APS upgrade. We've really taken a giant step forward in the last few months on the APS upgrade with the FY17 funding coming in at $42.5 million. That gets us off the $20 million mark that we were at for some time. This really allows us to move forward in a much more aggressive way, really to deliver the upgrade. It allows us to begin the initial procurements, and there are folks in here that I know that are really engaged in that process, and either here at the APS or over in the procurement office in Building 201. And so we really are excited to see that happen. There's great support for the APS upgrade within the Office of Science, Basic Energy Sciences program, as well as at the executive level in DOE. And also, we've seen great support in both the House and the Senate in terms of appropriations for not only 17, but also the 18 process is well underway, which I'll talk about. APS surpassed 20,000 peer-reviewed publications this year, really a significant milestone in terms of, again, demonstrating the great productivity of the advanced photon source and the staff here at the laboratory, and also our user community in that way. Advanced computing is another area that we can really be excited about and really feel we're on the verge of doing even more significant things in this space. I was surprised to learn that we actually have 4 of the top 500 machines here at the laboratory at this point in time. With Mira, Theta came online. Mira, we all love and know. It's been here for some time, a few years now. Theta came online just July 1st. It's a great tool as well. It's about the same size as Mira in terms of operations per second, but it's a different architecture, different applications certainly, and Bebop and Cetus. So really for the top 500, I had not realized here at the laboratory. The 2 examples here in terms of scientific accomplishments are nice to note as well. And the first one is really all about metal oxidation, and it's nice to see the folks in the ALCF and MCS working collaboratively with the folks here at APS in terms of that science, and so working across the laboratory in that way. And the last one is also one with J. Caesar, and again, the ALCF and MCS working closely together to really look at magnesium-based batteries as a next-generation technology, if you will. We've said for some time now we're on the road to exascale, and we can really say that with a great deal of confidence at this point in time. We'll talk about it a little bit later, but the President's budget request for fiscal year 2018 puts Argonne in the lead. We step ahead of Oak Ridge. Often we follow Oak Ridge in this space, but this allows us to step ahead. It calls for the deployment of this first exascale system here at the laboratory in 2021. Very significant, really, to step ahead in that way. It's a significant technical challenge as well as a real project management challenge as well to accomplish those objectives. But I'm certain, I see Devin is here. I'm sure Mike might be here as well. Did I see Mike earlier? Mike Packa, but I'm certain the folks in sales are certainly fully committed and well prepared to actually make sure that we pull together as a laboratory to support them and deliver exascale, the first exascale system in the world in 2021, hopefully. So we're pretty excited about that in terms of great progress. And that's going to be 100 times faster than Mira, so really a significant effort in that way. Materials and chemistry, Argonne is really known for being a materials lab. Much of the great research, much of what we've done to really move the needle in terms of scientific understanding and new technology developments really is rooted in our materials science and engineering work, and also in chemistry as well. So it's really a fundamental discipline here at the laboratory, and an area that we're really known for having great thought leaders in this space. A couple of recent examples, Matt Terrell just in the last few weeks has had the opportunity to actually testify, joint committee at the U.S. House and the Senate, really on the future of material science. And one example, several other of our leaders in this space have been asked to lead or participate actively in the Office of Basic Energy Sciences Basic Research Need Workshop, which really lays out the future, if you will, for research in material science. And so it's really exciting to see us thought leaders in this space as well. discovery of the world's, of a way to create some of the world's thinnest wires is kind of an interesting thought in terms of what you might be carrying around in your phone, and really kind of thinking about what might be needed in the future as we try to do move more information. And so collaborative effort there with the laboratory and with IME and the University of Chicago as well, so it's nice to highlight that. Perhaps you've heard of the oleo sponge. It's gone viral, so to speak. Great effort, collaborative effort, if you will, between NST and I should say Nanoscience and Technology and the Energy Systems Group here at the laboratory. Seth Darling has been the spokesperson. He's done some of the great work, but also Jeff Elam from Energy Systems as well. It really has gone viral. It's gotten over 100,000, if you will, views in terms of that space. And it's also resulted in a great number of inquiries. We're ready to move that technology, that discovery, if you will, to the commercial phase of intellectual property licensing. And so we're working actively to do that. We've got a lot of inquiries, so great to see that accomplishment. Again, putting our expertise to work in terms of both materials and chemistry in that space. Biology and environmental sciences. You think about biology and environmental sciences, you think about life and the ecosystem in which we live. And our efforts here really are focused on understanding how all that works and driving improvement in the quality of life for many of us. And really, a few things are highlighted here in terms of understanding really the soil microbial community and how that is influenced by the availability of different carbon sources and over time, basically. And so really understanding how that manifests itself in terms of what we see in the environment or in the ecosystem, if you will. Second item talks about best-in-class fine resolution climate data. I think 12 kilometers, really a much more detailed understanding, if you will, of climate change and how that influences, if you will, the environment as well, and the impact it might have on infrastructure is particularly important if you're a developer, or if you're an insurance company, or if you want to think about building something that big infrastructure project that you might want to make sure that you site correctly so that you don't end up a few years down the road wishing you'd moved it over a few hundred yards or a few hundred feet. And so really helpful in that space. It's really nice work being done there as well. So nice work being done here as well. I would highlight the the Worldwide Protein Data Bank as well. This is work that's done as part of a team with Northwestern, and certainly work done here at the laboratory in terms of 1,000 proteins in the Worldwide Data Bank, really significant in that way. Resiliency, this is a bit different slide, if you will. This is kind of the evolution, if you will, of our research activities and also the priorities and needs of the new administration. Certainly thinking about resiliency from both physical systems and physical structures, but also cybersecurity in this space as well. One of the things we've been able to do is really help the utilities think about expansion and, if you will, where to site a new power line or where to site a new power plant in that way, and really understand again what impact climate might have on that over that 100-year time frame, if you will, for the lifetime of that plant or power line in that way. So really helpful in terms of infrastructure planning, decision support. We've done some nice things in this space. Cyber, we've quickly become the go-to place in terms of the security of the grid. Perhaps you've read of the President's recent event that he held at the Department of Energy called Unleashing American Energy, which was really kind of I got to participate in that, got to attend. They invited just 3 laboratories to be a part of that conversation: Argonne, Oak Ridge, and Idaho. And so it was a real treat just to be invited. They had asked me to prepare to speak on grid security, which again shows that we've been identified within the department as thought leaders in this space and folks doing very important research. And so we're really pleased to have the recognition that really opens up an opportunity, because cybersecurity is one of the key initiatives, key concerns, if you will, for the Secretary of Energy. And so we're pleased to be known already as a leader in this space. Lots going on in that area as well. Moving on to physics, talk about cosmic microwave background radiation and the South Pole Telescope. I think many of you probably know we installed a new set of detectors at the existing South Pole Telescope this winter. We're anxious to see the results those transition EDS sensors actually being deployed and used at the South Pole. We're also in partnership not only with the University in Chicago and Fermilab, but also with Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory and SLAC, thinking about SMB S4, or stage 4, if you will, thinking about what the approach might be to that facility, what it might consist of, and also what research development might be done at that facility to really help us have a better understanding of cosmic microwave background radiation, so very significant in that way. The Argonne clean room is ready to begin operations next month, so we're excited to have that new capability here at the laboratory. I'd also mention a new capability at Atlas in terms of a gas-filled analyzer, which is used in conjunction with the gamma sphere to really help us understand our heaviest elements and really do some exciting research there with our users as well. A secure energy future is the next slide, which is thinking about really where we're headed in terms of our applied energy technology work. First really highlights the importance and the expanding scope and capabilities associated with what we call MRF, the Materials Energy Research Facility, and leading to the development, as we hope Jeff Binder and his team have laid out a vision for what we call the Midwest Transformative Energy Manufacturing Facility, which has gotten strong endorsement both from the Office of Science and Office of Energy Efficiency, Renewable Energy. The Advanced Manufacturing Office is something they'd like to see us develop. So we're a great place to do this. So we're in the Midwest, we're in the manufacturing belt, if you will, in the Midwest, and we've got some great scientific capabilities and new thoughts on how we can actually use the great science we do and those capabilities to really help build jobs around manufacturing in terms of next generation thoughts in this space. The next one down talks about infrastructure interdependencies and interconnected energy technologies, and certainly I think connected world in this space. It's really the direction we're all headed. Many of us carry cell phones, but also think about what we're doing in terms of energy production, the grid, the electrical grid, if you will. Think about how we use energy today, and think about transportation in that space, as well as how we use it in our homes and how it's used really in the commercial market sector, and really connecting all of that together basically into one system is a thought that's being actively discussed and debated. We have great capabilities in this area. We're doing some nice early work and really looking forward to growing this space as well. Then the next generation nuclear technology, great developments in this space this past year as well. New energy brought by Jeff Binder and Jordy in terms of working with Idaho and Oak Ridge. Those laboratories have pulled together as stronger than ever before to really think about advanced nuclear technologies. We bring great capabilities in that space. There's some work that's gotten underway as well with some of the new startups and nuclear energy technology companies. And so we're very excited about what's occurring in this space as well. Moving on, thinking about accomplishments in terms of the facilities and activities here that are underway at the laboratory. And we do a number of things in this space and think both new facilities, but also think renovation of existing facilities. We have over 100 facilities here at the laboratory. In many cases, it's more about reuse rather than build something new and take down what we have, and so we have a very active program in that way. One area to highlight here is really associated with the Building 350, the legacy project, as we call it, just down the way here. The former site of the New Brunswick Laboratory, working in partnership with the Department of Energy. Joanna Livengood and Rock Acre down front this morning. Thank you for being here. And this really was a bit of a challenge that we took on, I believe 2 years ago, really, in terms of de-inventory the facility very carefully. And the facility has now been transferred to the laboratory, and so we're in active conversation across the laboratory about how we might put this facility to use. I know Karen Hellman and team are working this very actively, and several have offered ideas and expect to hear news in the future on that. In terms of building the state-of-the-art, 3 projects are highlighted here. Let me talk first about the Materials Design Lab. It's our latest, if you will, SLI project, a science laboratory initiative project. These really come to the laboratory through a competition. It's not really advertised that way, but really compete with the 9 other science laboratories for funding for these major investments in our infrastructure here at the laboratory. Argonne has quickly established itself as a place of excellence in terms of project management and also construction of new facilities. I think the Energy Sciences Building, I think the protein characterization facility as well. Really doing nice work in this space, and so it really is great to see continued investment by the Office of Science in the Materials Design Lab. I think many of you come through the North Gate know the facility, or perhaps those that work in what we call the Energy Quad know the site as well. Several of us we did the management walkthrough yesterday at the construction site for the Materials Design Lab, which meant we went over on the rooftop at MEM, Materials Energy Module next to it, and actually looked down on the construction site because it's at a stage where it's not really safe for folks like me, management types, to actually get there and wander around. So they took us up on the rooftop, and they're actually in the process of putting in the forms to actually pour the first floor. They've done the subfloor, the sub-basement work, basically, the service floor work in the basement, and now they're putting in the first floor. And so it'll start to really quickly rise above the ground, and we'll see great progress there very quickly. Sorry for the inconvenience in terms of those of you who have to alter your path into the laboratory, but I think it's worth it. So we'll see some great things happen at the Materials Design Lab in the future. The Argonne clean room I mentioned earlier, it's close by the existing CNM. It's going to begin operation here in the next month. The Enterprise Data Center is perhaps the most attractive building on site. No? Sorry, Stu. It's in the 300 area. It's an important capability, important resource for us as well in terms of our enterprise network, if you will, and the data center, the data network associated with that. And so we're really pleased. It's actually being outfitted, and it's certainly going to provide a vital place for us to really concentrate, if you will, our network servers and the like. And so much needed, a real energy saver for us, real cost saver in the long term. And so we're very pleased to have that as well. I also would like to recognize the accomplishment in terms of diversity and inclusion. This is another quote provided, feedback, if you will, provided by the Office of Science as a part of the annual lab planning process. Again, we've gone from really being on the map in terms of a great concern in this space to being recognized for the good work we're doing in this space. And so I have to give credit to all of you in this room, every leader at the laboratory in that way has really helped us step in and engage where we need to. And we're doing some really nice things in this space. We're seen as leaders. They're now encouraging other laboratories to come here and see what they can learn from Argonne and really model, if you will, their activities off of our plan and our processes as well. So thank you all really for engaging in this way. We're not there. We've really just begun the conversation. We have a lot to do, a lot to work, but we're making good progress at this point in time. So great to get the recognition as well, an area of high concern, certainly with the Office of Science in the last few years. So it's good to get recognition for the progress. This is really what the plan is all about. And the plan's actually going to be posted on the internet here in the next month. Lisa Durham's not here. She's had a chance to visit with some family, and so she's doing that rather than be here today. So, but she encouraged me to mention the D&I plan will be posted on the internet here in August. It really highlights these four elements: engage, enlist, educate, and empower. It's really well laid out in that way. It's really built upon needs identified through the climate survey that we all participated in a little over 2.5 years ago, needs identified there. And it's all about really building a more diverse, inclusive, and respectful workplace. And to really get there, we do need everyone to engage. You guys have been fantastic about doing just that, recognizing that we all have responsibilities in this area. And so thank you for that. A couple of accomplishments just to highlight here, and one is each of the directorates now has a D&I working group, and hopefully you're aware of who that is within your directorate. If not, certainly ask the question. The other way to mention is that we have two new employee resource groups, one for veterans and other for what we call early career employees, which is called the Next Generation Society, if you will. I've had a chance to interact with both. It's very exciting in that way. They certainly have different interests, different needs, and have different ideas on how to move forward, but it's really fantastic to see the leadership come from within for those efforts and really doing some nice things in those spaces. And so I'll mention a little later on the early career and some of their activities, but really it's good encouraging to see folks really taking that responsibility and moving out. That's really the empowerment piece here as well. So. A slide just to slow me down a little bit and say thank you again. You know, the accomplishments I've spoken to and the plans I'll speak to in a minute can't be done without you, and your contribution is really critical to the laboratory, and you've really enabled what we've accomplished, and you enable what we do in the future. A lot of great photos here, a lot of different folks doing all kinds of different work, and so we're pretty excited to be able to show this. So thank you very much for your contributions. Please know you're important to the laboratory and its future. So who are we? I wanted to share just some basic stats, if you will. We're 1,500 scientists and engineers, about 600 students, and about 1,600 really professionals that really provide support across the laboratory to really enable the scientists and engineers to accomplish their great research. It's important to know we've got about 250 staff that have joint appointments. Many of those are either with Northwestern or the University of Chicago. We encourage that. We like to see that because it brings, if you will, additional ideas, additional competencies into the laboratory, a fresh set of eyes as well, and so we encourage that. Our postdocs, 260 postdocs, certainly a vital part of our research community. Argonne's recognized for really having just excellent postdocs, and they contribute very significantly to the scientific accomplishments of the laboratory. This summer's been exciting with the students. We have a record number of students here, and so we're really pleased to have that. Perhaps you've got an intern or two working in your space, and it's been fun to actually engage with them a bit as well. They, again, bring a set of fresh ideas, a different perspective, a different set of concerns than many of us who've been here for some time, and so that's fun. We do have, our community represents some over 70 different countries, of course, dozens and dozens of different universities, colleges, and schools, and many of us come from very different backgrounds, and so that's really represents, if you will, the diversity of the laboratory and the strength that brings to the science we're able to do. So really fantastic in that way. We have a multiplier effect in terms of who we are, and that's our user community. We have nearly 8,000 users. The numbers are shown here. Certainly, we often talk about the advanced photon source, over 5,000 users a year. Certainly know as well, we have a great number of users across our other facilities that are sponsored by the Office of Science in this space. Leadership Computing, more than 1,000, if you will. The Center for Nanoscale Material, over 500. And Atlas, something we don't talk about often, but over 300 on an annual basis. It really is a workhorse, if you will, for the Office of Science nuclear physics program, very valued, very recognized as making very significant contributions in terms of its capabilities. And then also the Great Plains site, ARM, the Atmospheric Radiation Measurements Program, sponsored by the Office of Basic Environmental Research. I wanted to put in a plug as well for Argonne Out Loud, which is really all about engaging our community. I don't know how many of you have taken advantage of the seminars we conduct, the outreach that we provide through Argonne Out Loud. I've made it a point as interim laboratory director to be present and host those events as frequently as I can. And it really has opened my eyes to really the community that surrounds the laboratory, their interest in science, their interest in what the laboratory is up to. It really has built a great deal of advocacy within our community, which is really important during this period of time. It's important that people understand what we do, they know enough so they can say something positive about it when given the opportunity. Some have come up to me after and said, "Hey, Paul, I'd like to write a letter to Congressman Lipinski. Is that okay?" And I said, "Absolutely, please, please." So, you know, that's the kind of, having that kind of support is really important, as I said, during this period of time. And one of the things I've encouraged folks to do here at the laboratory, I've asked them to do two things basically, and one is really be proud of what we do, and this is one way we're doing that, and really talk about what they do with their neighbors, their friends, and their family, and encourage them as well to take an interest in the laboratory and speak up when given the opportunity about the value of what we do and the great science. And I encourage employees as well to talk about their contributions here at the laboratory. So they have pride really in what you do here at the laboratory is what I would ask. But I want to thank those that have participated. We've called upon numerous scientists and engineers to really participate in the Argonne Out Loud series over the past several months. There's one this evening on science and the future of food. We've got Christina Negre, Joshua Elliott, and Jack Gilbert speaking this evening. There's one at the end of August as well. So I think this evening I've been informed there are just about 600 people that have registered for the Argonne Out Loud lecture series. So please, if you've not been to one, please find the time, make the time to actually come and participate. We've talked about everything from Picasso, understanding the kind of paint that Picasso used to his art, to our work at the South Pole. That was really fascinating because Clarence Cheng brought moon suits, if you will, what he wears basically when he goes down there to work on the South Pole telescope, and that was great because he let the kids try it on, and he was really enthusiastic in that way. We've talked about nuclear energy, and as I said tonight, we're talking about the future of food. It's really a great way to engage the community and a great way to really build their support, again, for what we do here at the laboratory. Well, okay. You guys probably saw this just before you came over this morning, but this is Eric's update. I did talk with Eric more seriously. I spoke with Eric Monday evening and said, hey, Eric, where are we at and what's going on? And he assured me that they're in the final stages of really consideration of vetting of candidates. He talked about identifying the next director within a matter of weeks. Joanna and Rock are here. You know, one of the things that needs to occur in this process is DOE approval. And sometimes that comes quickly, sometimes it doesn't. And so that's part of the unknown here. But please know that this is an important decision. The university is taking appropriate action and being very deliberate, very careful. As the message indicated, they've actually interviewed several qualified candidates, and they're working through the process as deliberately and as quickly as they possibly can. So. Moving on, a little bit of conversation about new leaders at the laboratory, and some of these are new faces, some are not, some are people in new roles. I'm really pleased to be able to identify these folks. It's fantastic that we have new leaders, both from within the lab and also, I shouldn't say new leaders from within the lab, but new people in new leadership roles that come from within the lab, but also able to attract new leaders to the laboratory. And really pleased to highlight just a few here in terms of what we're up to. We have 3 new division directors that have just come to the laboratory June 1st. I see Cynthia's here sitting next to Mike, so welcome, Cynthia. Cynthia Jenks joins us from DOE's Ames Laboratory. We're very pleased to have her as the new director in Chemical Sciences and Engineering. Valerie Taylor's joined us as the new division director in in Mathematics and Computer Sciences. She comes to us from Texas A&M, knows the laboratory well, so perhaps many of you have worked with her previously. And then John Bird has just joined us, Accelerator Sciences Division, or Systems Division, Accelerator Systems Division from Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. So 3 new division directors just started in 1st of July, if you will. So we're very pleased to have them. And then I see Venkat sitting over. Venkat joined us actually in December, I think it was. Yes, in December from Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory, directing Access. So we're pleased to have that. Very, very encouraging to me that we are able to actually attract, again, both from within and from outside the laboratory, some really deep expertise and leadership for very critical roles here at the laboratory, so it's important in that space. Argonne Distinguished Fellows, these are the 4 new fellows for 2017. Many of you probably recognize David, Wei, Alec, Sasha, and Tiana, and certainly they're all senior scientists here at the laboratory. Many of them have also held management roles. Sasha is just stepping down as the Accelerator Systems Division Director. Certainly has done great things in that role as well. Different competencies represented here across that spectrum. I mentioned earlier the Next Generation Society. One of the things that they ask and expressed an interest in doing is actually spending some time with our Argonne Distinguished Fellows. As early career researchers, they wanted to understand kind of the other end, if you will, of the career chain here at the laboratory, the career ladder, I should say, here at the laboratory. And so there's a forum set up in early August, basically, for these 4 new distinguished fellows to spend some time with our Next Generation Society, really in a panel discussion format to really help guide, mentor, if you will, give them some ideas on how to manage their careers. And so I'm excited about that. So let's actually give these 4 a round of applause as well. I wanted to also highlight awards. This kind of continues the script that you saw earlier. These actually are the highest level Department of Energy awards that one can achieve. We've received actually 3 different groups have received secretarial awards this past year. Perhaps you've heard of them, perhaps not, but these are very significant as well because generally they require a champion within the department, perhaps more than one, to actually make a nomination and champion that nomination through the process. And we've got 3 groups that have been recognized in the last year. I think the Nuclear Engineering Division for what we call the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. This is the Iranian framework, if you will. Space that we don't talk about, research we don't talk about often, but please know we're a vital participant, continuing a vital participant in the process. We were key really to the negotiation of the Iranian treaty and really doing some nice work in this space. It's great to get the recognition by the department for our accomplishments here. And so there are 6 employees all in the Nuclear Engineering Division that deserve some recognition here. So as you see them, please congratulate them on being recognized in this way. Then we have 2 other awards that Joanna and I actually got to participate in providing the recognition for. One really focused on predicting precise therapies for specific cancer treatments. It's nice work being done really by folks in MCS, so it's really nice that Tom and Ravi are shown there, and Rick's of course not in the photo, but certainly a contributor as well. And then also I see Chick is here, Chick Makel, one for the Global Security Sciences Division, really focused on answering questions about a potential Ebola outbreak in the U.S., certainly when that was of concern not too long ago. And this is work that actually I know firsthand made it to Secretary Moniz, and he had some questions about it, and a good conversation followed out of his interest in that article. And so it's really great to get the recognition at this level within the department. These are just a few examples of the kind of impact the laboratory is having, both across the world and here in the U.S. So we're really pleased to have these folks be recognized. So how about another round of applause? Just to keep folks awake. Driving forward, this is really thinking about the future, if you will, and where we're headed as a laboratory and how we deliver more science, better science, more impactful science, if you will, in that space. And so we'll walk through these fairly quickly at this point. I wanted to start here, first of all, with a budget update. Challenging time. Certainly, as many of you are aware, they followed the process actively from the introduction of the skinny budget in March and the president's budget request in May, I believe it was. Certainly raised a great deal of concern, not only here at Argonne, but across the DOE laboratory complex and across much of the scientific research community here in the U.S. That was, as we talked about it at the time, that at the beginning of the process, that was not the end, and it's clearly proven to be that way. Last week, the House Energy and Water Bill did their markup. It's much more generous than the president's budget request for many of the programs we conduct here at the laboratory, and so we're pleased to be able to say that. I won't go into the details because it's just another step in the process. Another important piece of the puzzle comes together today, actually, with the Senate. They did their markup earlier in the week. We have some early insights into what the markup is. It's generous, far more so than the president's budget request. It really increases funding in another number of critical areas for the laboratory and for the Department of Energy. They'll release the report, hopefully, by the end of the day, so we'll know the details. But please know feedback from both the House and the Senate is encouraging. The House being more generous than the Senate being more generous than the House. What occurs next, they're voted upon basically by the House and Senate, and then they'll have a conference and try to reach some, if you will, agreement on a common funding framework for FY18. If that doesn't happen, continuing resolution is a possibility. We talk about that often. It's good to have both the House and the Senate take action because that indicates that most likely, if there's a continuing resolution, it'll be set at a fairly healthy level, perhaps what we realized in FY17 rather than something that might reflect the President's budget request. So message here is we're encouraged and continue, if you will, to follow the process, continue to ask questions, to continue to engage. We have been very active in reaching out to our stakeholders within the Department of Energy and also our congressional delegation. They're engaged fully in the process. They've asked a lot of good questions, and so we've really helped by responding to them with our thoughts, our needs, if you will, and really a very active dialogue in that way. I really appreciate the hard work that's gone into this. I think many of you know that I've spent a great deal of time in Washington committed to do that, but others have as well, and the process has been very effective in terms of the results we're seeing to date. So we're optimistic, really, in terms of where we're going to end in FY18. Major initiatives. This slide really comes from the annual lab plan. I mentioned earlier that we had a very deliberate process, great team engagement across the laboratory, really led by the deputy laboratory directors and Matt and John, as well as the associate laboratory directors and other leaders in really identifying these strategic objectives. We presented these to the Office of Science, as I mentioned earlier. It's great, actually, to see the feedback they gave us, which was very encouraging on each, showing strong alignment with their thinking in terms of what the laboratory is all about, what their research programs are all about, and the future of those programs. And so we've done well in this space. As I said, it's encouraging because it really opens up the conversation with the department and really allows us to propose new ideas, have conversations about working together and really driving things forward in that way. So no surprises, hopefully, at this point in terms of what the 5 are. Hard X-ray sciences, advanced computing, materials and chemistry, the university has our laboratory, energy manufacturing, science and engineering. Certainly hard X-ray science, advanced computing, and the university our laboratory are continuations of existing initiatives. Materials and chemistry is a bit of a reboot. And then energy manufacturing, science, and engineering is a new initiative really focused on our applied energy work and thinking about moving materials all the way through manufacturing as they apply to energy technologies. Advanced computing is a fascinating one because coincident with our development of the annual lab plan was the rollout of the President's budget request, the acceleration, as I mentioned earlier, in exascale, and our thought on what Aurora would be. So we now have what's called Aurora 21 in the planning phase. It is that exascale system that we intend to deploy in 2021. The language here talks about machine learning and also alternative architectures. Aurora 21 is particularly challenging to us in terms of the technology that's required to actually meet the objectives we've established for that exascale system, not only in terms of modeling and simulation, but also in terms of data analytics and machine learning. So we've really, if you will, put on the table, really as part of our objectives, a very aggressive program there in terms of advances in technology associated with computing. So we're very excited to take that on and actually, as I said before, beat Oak Ridge. So, materials and chemistry, I'll mention. I won't speak to each of this because of the time I see I'm a bit over in terms of where I wanted to be, but many of us attended the Basic Energy Sciences Advisory Committee meeting last week, which is an open committee meeting, and Harriet Kung, the Associate Director for Basic Energy Sciences, presented her objectives, her priorities for the year. And there was amazingly strong alignment between our thoughts on materials and chemistry initiative here at the laboratory and what she presented in terms of priorities. She talked about energy storage, she talked about catalysis, she talked about quantum materials and chemistry, and she talked about energy and water interdependence. And so all those things are talked about in terms of our interest, our initiatives as part of the materials and chemistry initiative we presented in the annual lab plan. So we think she may have borrowed those ideas from us. Perhaps not, but it's great to see the alignment, and we're pretty excited to be moving forward with her rather than feeling like we're kind of pushing her along. So it's good. One of the things important to note, though, the 5 initiatives that we've identified, that's not all we do at Argonne. I want to say that very clearly, very explicitly. We have many other active and important research programs underway here at the laboratory. To some extent, they might represent an emerging program, an emerging idea, or really where the laboratory might move to in the future. And so it's really important that we recognize and appropriately support those activities. And you'll hear about beyond the detail, if you will, in terms of many of those activities through your directorate level all hands meetings. We've asked each of the associate laboratory directors and John to hold all hands meetings in the near future to talk about the detailed plans for each of those directorates and really get into a bit more detail beyond the lab level initiatives that I've presented in terms of their plans for the coming year and their priorities. And so the dates are shown here. It's important, I think, for employees within those directorates to actually attend. It's also, for the first time, we've encouraged folks to open those up so that anybody who has an interest from across the laboratory can attend. And so go learn. If you're in EGS and you want to know what's up over at CELS, certainly you've got the date and the information will be available. Go sit in the room, basically, and become a sponge and see if there are opportunities for you there in terms of collaboration, or perhaps you've got some ideas you'd like to introduce into their conversations. And so it's really important. I think we do that as a community. We really want to strengthen the community and, again, build on that collaboration across the laboratory. One area I wanted to comment on, I mentioned earlier, the materials and chemistry and specific interest in quantum materials and chemistry within the Office of Basic Science, but it really extends across the Office of Science. They're standing up a new program, a new focused program in quantum information sciences. It involves 4 of the existing associate directors, the program offices within the Office of Science. In anticipation of that, Matt Terrell and David Oshalom and the University of Chicago and Fermilab have really combined efforts in what we call the Chicago Quantum Exchange. So that really allows us, if you will, to complement each other's capabilities and have a good active dialogue discussion about the future and research opportunities in this space. And we're going to build on that by adding other partners and pursuing new opportunities. There are a couple of proposals that were being developed. They're actually due this week yet. One on quantum algorithms and one on quantum information testbed. So we're already jumping into this space. It's about a $40 million program that's been carved out within the Office of Science starting now. And so it's important we're engaged in this way. We're excited to do this. We think we've got very deep capabilities and should be very successful in this space over time. I also wanted to highlight the new directorate at the laboratory, Science and Technology Partnerships and Outreach, STPO, if you will. It's really about working with the 4 associate laboratory directors, the research directorates, and really helping them grow both research and business partnerships that result in additional opportunities here at the laboratory, growth, if you will, over time. Suresh Sundararajan, who's here next to Maria and Denny, is the Associate Laboratory Director, the interim currently, doing a great job, I think, of reaching out and engaging others, really working in partnerships. The idea across the laboratory, I should say, he's also done a great job at winning support from key stakeholders in the Department of Energy. This is an area in the past where they questioned what we were up to, or if we're wondering if we were being strategic, where we were taking on too much risk. And by being proactive, Suresh has really calmed that concern, and now we're seen as really leaders in this space. We receive positive feedback, again, through the annual lab planning process about what we're doing. And so we're very pleased to have the new organization. Hopefully you found them useful as you've reached out to them and really engaged very actively with Suresh. And it's all about growth and keeping ourselves strategic as we think about that, and also making sure we're managing risk appropriately. Suresh often works with the 4 centers that we've established in the last 2 years: Access, Argonne Design Works, the new National Security Center just established this year, and Chain Reaction Innovations. And this, perhaps you saw, it was practically a full-page article in the Chicago Tribune about Argonne being open for business, interview of Suresh by the Chicago Tribune reporter, done very well. And so please continue to think as these centers shown here and others as really the portal into the laboratory for new business opportunities. And so engage with the directors there as you have an opportunity and interest. I wanted to mention Workday financials. Perhaps this isn't as positive a slide as others that I've shown, but really wanted to comment on the need for a new financial management system here at the laboratory and why this is so challenging. I think many of you probably know better than I that what we're trying to do here is move 20 legacy systems into one integrated enterprise system. And so that's really the challenge that we're wrestling with on a daily basis. We've got a strong team, certainly across the laboratory, engaged in helping us do this and move as quickly as we can. You'll all admit, from my perspective, this has been more difficult than I anticipated. I think we were a bit spoiled by the ease of implementation of Workday HCM. Again, though the real difference is that was just migrating one legacy system into a new system. In this case, we're migrating 20 legacy financial systems into one enterprise-wide system. Very different scenario, certainly a big effort. Important we do this. It'll allow us to be much more proactive in terms of managing the laboratory and our finances. We'll get much more return over time in terms of what we're able to do with the funds we have by having a much better system. So please appreciate your support. Again, asking for your patience, and certainly ideas are welcome. Safety. I wanted to comment on safety as well. I don't like it when people get hurt. It's really a bad day when somebody here at the laboratory gets hurt doing their work. We're improving in this space. Our performance is improving. We're doing much better. We could do better yet. Just a couple of things I'd ask for you to do. And one is not every day is it possible to, at least it's not for me and probably not for others, to come to the lab really with their A game. Sometimes things are going on at home, or perhaps I've had a bad commute that morning, or I'm just distracted in some way, and so I don't want to have my A game on. And so it's important that we look out for each other, that we really kind of help people stay safe, if you will, our coworkers, and care for them by expressing concern if you see them a bit off, or you see them doing something that doesn't seem quite right, or perhaps they haven't thought of something. So it's important we look out for each other. I'm asking you to do that. The other thing I'd ask you to do really is if you have a concern or an idea, or perhaps a complaint you want to voice, certainly reach out to safety@anl.gov. We've really stepped up our effort in really responding much more quickly to the input received through that mechanism, if you will, and would encourage people to continue to offer ideas. We've made good progress, so I don't want it to be a total downer here. So I think we can celebrate really the improvement we're seeing. It's notable, but at the same time, as I said, it's just a bad day when somebody gets injured here at the laboratory, and we'd like not to have that happen, so we appreciate that. Final slide here in terms of looking ahead, really 4 things that we're really focused on, and one is delivering exceptional outcomes, really focused on delivery. We've been known in the past a bit on having lots of great ideas, but not being very effective in terms of delivering on those, and so we're going to step up the rigor associated with our management of our initiatives and really ensure that we are executing efficiently and delivering great impact by doing that. We also want to make sure that I mentioned earlier that our initiatives are built upon the strength of our core capabilities. And we need to be really continuing to make sure that we're strengthening and leveraging our core capabilities. And so we want to make sure that we understand where we're at in terms of those capabilities, making appropriate investments, offering development opportunities, if you will. and really leveraging those core capabilities into new opportunities across the laboratory and with new sponsors, and so that's what that's about. And then we want to continue to invest in our talent, our staff, each of you. Again, as professionals here at the laboratory, you have objectives in terms of your own careers. We'd like to help you along those paths and really want to invest in you as much as we're possibly able to and be supportive in your careers as you develop. And then last item, again, a bit of a reminder on working safely and also being efficient. We are in a cost-sensitive environment. We realize that every day, and so it's important that we think about how to do things more efficiently and to be effective as well as being safe. So, with that, let me take a question or two. Let me hear from you, please. Please. We've got a microphone upstairs as well as around the room. Any burning questions? Please, please.
How was the economic impact on Illinois calculated?
Boy, who can help me with that question, huh? Okay, Matt, can you field that one, or Suresh? I'm gonna.
I didn't hear the question.
Okay, we'll get you the question. How was the economic impact, the $695 million on the state of Illinois calculated?
We did the university worked with, I think it's...
Why don't you grab the microphone?
Yeah, sorry. Breaking my own rules. The university did an economic impact study in 2010, and so we, from that study, we extrapolate. So we do hope that the university will mount another economic impact study with Fermilab and Argonne and the university again. So it's we worked with our CFO and their team to, I think it's a multiplier effect, to basically estimate what the impact is.
Question back here.
Will the Argonne strategic plan or some version of it be released to the lab? I don't think that's been publicly available.
Uh-huh. We have, unlike past years, we have an effort underway, and I'll actually ask Matt, if you want to speak to this, Matt. I think, again, if we can get Matt a microphone, we'll help Matt Terrell, Deputy for Science, speak to this. He's leading the effort on this space.
We've heard this question a lot, and it's a very reasonable question. So there are things in the lab plan we submit to DOE that we don't want to distribute widely that have to do with resources and things that are business sensitive. But together with the communications group, there's an effort to put together something that really tries to bring everybody a really personal awareness of where the lab is heading with the strategic initiative. So the short answer is yes. I'm not sure yet of the time scale or exact form it'll take.
Other questions? You guys are letting me off easy. Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.